Hello, I'm the Miami Autism Dad, Victor Antunes, the Inclusive My Realtor, and this is the Autism Podcast at Miami's Community Newspapers. Today, I'm with Alexander Paz. He's VP of Education and Workforce Development at Chapman Partnership. Alex, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Victor. Good morning.
Good morning. So, I think I'm like many Miamians. I'd heard of Chapman. What is exactly sure what you guys did? So tell me, what does Chapman do?
So Chapman Partnership is an organization that was established in 1995 by Alva Chapman. Mr. Chapman was a Miami icon, one of those larger-than-life figures that could get things done. And around 1992, 1993, when he was driving home from the Miami Herald, he would start looking to his left, looking to his right, and he would see thousands and thousands of people living in cardboard shacks, tents, and it was just endless. So at one occasion of his Bible study group, him and his wife, Betty, left it. And he just said, you know what? We have to do something about homelessness in Miami-Dade County. And that's kind of where our trademark came from, our being no one sleeps on the street. Because he told Betty, no one should have to sleep on the streets of Miami-Dade County. So through a lot of work, a lot of work with mayors, commissioners, governors. Governor Lawton Chiles actually established a commission to tackle homelessness, which Alva chaired. Chapman Partnership was born in association with the Homeless Trust. So we were born at the same time. And Chapman Partnership is the operating partner of the Homeless Trust. What do? We ensure that individuals, families, youth, children have a pathway to get back to sustainability in this city. We give them the opportunity to get their lives back in check.
You know, it's interesting you say thousands and thousands of people, because right now, there was 92 you said?
Yes.
Back then, I don't know what the population was, but it wasn't the 3 million that it is today. And then a census was done recently, and we had about 1,000 homeless people in Miami.
Right. The point in time count.
Right. So we've gone to a higher population with fewer homeless people. So obviously, we're making a difference.
Absolutely. And, you know, at Chapman Partnership, we have a very defined set of rules, if you will. And it's the way Alva wanted our centers run. So as an example, none of our centers have any signage because we don't want individuals feeling that they're going into some sort of mission or defining them as homeless. None of our centers provide cold meals. Alva said that we needed to provide 3 warm meals a day. And if someone is working, we provide them their lunches. But I'm saying that to say there was so much forethought into this. There was so much planning that we are just by staying true to our original mission, we're staying a little bit ahead of the curve. You mentioned the 1,000 number, the point in time count in Miami-Dade County. We have our colleagues over in Los Angeles, our colleagues in New York that are dealing with 75, 100,000 homeless individuals. And it gets to a point where if you get behind it, it almost becomes insurmountable. So that's why we have one of the lowest street homelessness rates in the country, in any major metropolitan city, but we don't let our foot off the gas. Because if we do, this will creep up on us before you know it. So the work remains, and we're laser focused on it.
Yeah, so you're saying you keep your foot on the gas. What does that look like day to day?
We need to ensure that the clients that we're seeing, which are over 1,000 at any point in time, between community clients, between clients in our shelters, that they are receiving the full allocation of their community resources, of our case manager support, of our mental and psychological support systems, so that they can form a game plan for their lives. When you end up homeless rather, a lot of times it's because of situations out of your control. Medical emergency, rents go up, you lose a car, you lose a job. A lot of us could end up homeless if we miss out on a couple of paychecks. So we need to make sure that people can overcome that. And we have an element of our population that needs a little bit of enhanced medical help or substance abuse treatment. We need to be there for them. Because if we're not helping them in the moment, the issue just becomes a little bit larger every day and a little bit larger. And that's how we stay ahead of it.
Now, you mentioned medical, and medicine in America is getting super expensive.
Mm-hmm.
So you have people who are working on, let's say, minimum wage or
Right.
just a little bit above. And I don't know what kind of health insurance they might have through their employers, but let's just say there's still going to be a deductible.
Right.
Is there a way to like identify these people and maybe, because it's cheaper to keep somebody off the streets than to get them off the streets, right?
Exactly.
Is there a way to like find these people and help them with certain expenses before they find themselves homeless?
So that's a great question, because the Homeless Trust and Chapman Partnership as well, there's an element of our work called homelessness prevention. So for individuals calling the Homeless Trust and saying, I'm at risk of becoming homeless, or I'm at risk of ending up in one of the shelters, there are resources available. So we always go out and we say, go to homelesstrust.org, go to chapmanpartnership.org. Sometimes you don't need to wait until everything has kind of taken a left turn and you're out of resources. Inform yourself, become knowledgeable. But it is a traumatic event in any individual's life when you either are on the verge of being evicted or you arrive in one of our shelters and you have to say, well, now I'm homeless. And with our shelters being the largest provider of family services for the unhoused population, sometimes you might be there with your wife and kids.
Mm-hmm.
And having to admit that you need the help is sometimes incredibly difficult. So we advise everyone, do as much as you can as soon as you know that your situations are becoming untenable.
Now, here's a problem I see with having people call you is that how many of them even know about you?
Exactly.
Because as a gap I've seen in all the people I've had on the show is that a lot of them are almost like secret societies.
Right.
Like they're out there, like Easter Seals. I had on Camila Rocha. I knew about Easter Seals.
They do incredible work.
But I didn't know what they did until I had her on the show and I asked her, hey, what do you guys do exactly? So I'm thinking like Chapman, because you don't have any signage, and I understand why, and it's a great idea. But how would a person, especially like let's say an immigrant who just recently arrived, let's say a couple of years ago, they're not going to know about you guys.
Exactly.
How do we reach those people?
So what we do is we rely on Miami-Dade County's incredible network of resource providers. So if you go to your local social workers, if you go to your local elected officials, they will know who Chapman Partnership is. But we're not a walk-in shelter. So every client always needs to begin, and this goes for most of the providers in the homeless continuum of care in Miami-Dade County, you need to speak to the Homeless Trust first, because we have such a diverse array of providers. So you have Lotus House that does a fantastic job with women and children. You have the Miami Rescue Mission, who Tony over there, he does great work with single men and getting them back on track. Have the Salvation Army, and you have us. So the Homeless Trust and their outreach coordinators, they'll decide, and they'll, depending on your family situation or your individual situation, hey, this is a Chapman candidate. Hey, this is a Miami Rescue Mission candidate. So we do rely a lot on those outreach coordinators. And that's a big reason why shows like this are so important. I get to have a conversation with you and tell you, Victor, this is what we're doing. This is what's coming down the pike. And more importantly, this is the help we need to keep it going so that we don't turn into a Los Angeles or a New York. We can keep Miami as it is.
You know, and getting the help you need, do you guys rely on public funds or is it all private? How does that work for you guys?
So it's a mix, right? There is a 1% that was passed back in the Alva Chapman days, a 1% sales tax on all food and beverage in Miami-Dade County. So let's say you go to a local restaurant and you have a nice dinner. It costs you $100. $1 of that will go towards the Homeless Trust, who then allocates funding to all the providers in Miami-Dade County. But that doesn't account for our whole budget. So every year we have to raise about $8 million privately, which we have an incredible development and philanthropic team that works with corporations, individuals, churches, family foundations to kind of make us whole every year. So every year we wrap up the year and provide great outcomes and provide services that the folks need, but we start fresh every year and we've got to go out there and raise it all over again.
Well, the 1%, I didn't know that. That's amazing. Now, you also said that you don't take walk-ins. So we have 1,000 people who are homeless. If you're part of that homeless population and you want to get off the street, how would somebody get into your system?
So the city of Miami and Miami-Dade County, there are dozens of outreach providers. In the city of Miami, they're colloquially referred to as green shirts. These are individuals that are going into encampments, and anytime they see an individual that's perhaps sleeping in their car, they get approached. So most of the folks that you see on the street have probably been approached by one of the many outreach organizations offering them the help.
Mm.
The challenge we see sometimes is that there are individuals that don't like the structure of our shelters, or the mental health is so far gone. They've been off their medications for so long that it's sometimes hard to get them to see the opportunity that's available to them. But for individuals that are experiencing homelessness, let's say they're not computer savvy, let's say they don't want to call some organization, they will be approached by one of these outreach companies, organizations, and you'll see their cars going through different parts of the city. You'll see New Hope, you'll see City of Miami vehicles, and you'll see people being engaged.
You know, you used the word encampments, and when I was a kid, I remember seeing encampments.
Right.
I haven't seen one lately. Do we still have those?
Very few. And when they do pop up, the Homeless Trust immediately sends those outreach teams out there. Encampments are dangerous because it starts forming this standard that it's almost okay, and almost like another society within those encampments. We really focus on getting to the people before the situation becomes too far out of control. So if you're noticing less encampments, that is absolutely by design, and that's through a lot of hard work from the entire county, really.
Mm. Yeah, I've noticed things like the highway overpasses.
Mm-hmm.
They used to be angled and people would sleep up there, and now they're vertical, so they can't do it anymore. So yeah, I guess
right.
And
We have to be, because at the humane, really, these are individuals. These are human beings. So the solution is not. I've seen cities where they just put spiky things on the bus benches.
New York does that.
Yeah, that's not the solution. That's just saying, well, you can't be here.
But where can you be? It'd be somewhere.
The solution lies in having conversations with the individuals that are facing these troubles, but also having the network of services and providers that can help if they choose to take up the help. Mm. We're very different. We're not a mission model. Yes, we provide 3 meals, and yes, we provide a place to sleep at night, but we also provide employment services, education services, childcare services, mental health services, healthcare services. You need to have that comprehensive offering so that people know that you're serious and people engage with you and ultimately exit homelessness.
You know, you mentioned childcare, and I was surprised when I went to Chapman Partnership and I saw that you have families there. Because as an outsider, when I think of a place like Chapman Partnership, I think adults, either women or men, but no, you've got entire families in there.
Absolutely.
How does that dynamic work?
So that's one of the things that sets us apart at Chapman Partnership, and it was by design. When we did the tour, you saw how the facility is set up. So we have single males, single females. We have a youth population that's 18 to 24, and those are the kids that are aging out of foster care and have nowhere to go. So we have areas for them. We have new mothers, and we have those families with their children. So it's incredibly important to us as an organization to not split up families. We believe there's so much value to, a mother and a father being able to sit down with their children for dinner, or being able to go to one of our spiritual life and wellness, worship ceremonies, and doing all that together, because they became homeless together. And when you see them exit homelessness together, that's an incredibly special moment.
It has to be so gratifying to see that.
It's incredible.
Yeah.
That's a big reason why we do what we do.
Now, you mentioned these young adults, 18 to 24. Now, what's interesting to me about that age is that at that age, those are high leverage years.
Yes.
Where you can make a big difference. Because like an 18-year-old versus a 38-year-old, they're very different people.
Right.
And I think that we can make the biggest impact when they're at that age. So like an 18-year-old, he ages out of the foster system, ends up at Chapman. What is the plan for that person?
So we immediately have to go in and ensure that the mindset is in a good place, because these young people can feel almost forgotten by society, the society that's around them. And these young individuals can become angry and act out. And life is about decisions, right?
Yeah.
So if at 18, you take a left instead of a right, that can define the rest of your life.
Yes,
Let's say you get incarcerated at a young age. Now you have a felony.
Mm-hmm.
Now your career prospects are incredibly limited. So we offer a broad scope of mentorship services. Like I mentioned, we have a robust spiritual life and wellness program. Chase Scott, who's the team chaplain at the Miami Heat, he serves as the director of our spiritual life program, and we meet with those clients. The other side of that is getting them the educational resources that they need. So if they've just exited high school, we can immediately get them into a college program or a technical vocational program through our partnerships with Miami-Dade County Public Schools and Miami-Dade College, who have also recognized that we need to get to these kids. They're really kids.
Mm-hmm.
If you're 18,
you're a kid.
You're a kid.
You're an adult legally, but you're a kid.
And, you hear about stories in other states and other cities where these young people are just out in the world with no resource, no mentorship, no guidance, and adrift, and bad things happen. So that's why we placed a huge priority on that population and getting them the support and structure that they need. There's a lot of discipline in our centers, and there's a lot of interactions with our case managers and our employees, and everyone's trying to just help get them to a better place.
Yeah, discipline gets a bad rap. Super important.
Incredibly important.
And then I've also heard, you've heard the phrase tough love.
Yeah.
But tough love often ends up just being an excuse to be a jerk.
Mm-hmm.
So how do you balance because kids need, especially at that age, they need a lot of discipline. And I think they thrive in that. So what does the discipline look like for a kid who's 18 at Chapman?
So at Chapman Partnership, we recently, in collaboration with Barry University, became a trauma-informed organization. What does trauma-informed mean? It means that we try to limit re-traumatization for individuals. For that population we're talking about, there's a lot of elements that could be re-traumatizing. Just looking at someone that has responsibility over your life can be tough. But we like to say that we instill a culture of empathetic accountability. So every person at Chapman Partnership meets with their case manager weekly, and you have a game plan. It's almost like a military operation. This is what we're going to do this week. This is what we're going to do next week. And you are assigned goals. So you have a housing goal. You have an employment goal. If you have children, you have a child stabilization goal with who's going to take care of your kids while you're at work. You also have a housing goal, ultimately, which is the most important. So through those elements of accountability, folks begin the journey to exit this stage of their life. And it's a chapter. Homelessness should not define a person. But when individuals are not showing progress, or perhaps don't think that it's important to do that, we have to bring in the tough love. So Chapman is not a place where individuals will be at in perpetuity. Mm-hmm. It's a transitional shelter. So around 120 days is the time that we have with these folks. Mm. So we need to make sure that once they are stabilized in a good place and a good mindset, we immediately start the work.
Now, you used the word trauma. Mm-hmm. And when I was at Chapman Partnership, I would look at these men, and some people might look at them and say, well, I see lazy people. Mm-hmm. Intellectually, I see people who have probably suffered some kind of trauma.
Exactly.
What is like the common traumas that lead people to homelessness?
So think about it, Victor. Let's say, because we've had these situations, let's say you've been working your entire adult life and you have children and you've lived in a house that you've lived at and the rent has been reasonable. But suddenly the owner of that house passes away, the house gets sold, and your rent more than doubles from 1 month to the next. Let's say your hours were cut at the factory where you work making windows. Suddenly, you went from a place where your life was pretty set and you had a plan and your kids were going to be okay. Now you're in a place where you don't know where the next meal is going to come from. You don't know where you're going to sleep that night. You might have to be in your car, drifting from parking lot to parking lot, and you end up at one of our facilities. I always say, the moment that you arrive in one of our orientation classrooms where you kind of get the rules of the center and what our program consists of, is one of the most traumatizing events in a lot of these people's lives. Mind you, we have folks that have had very difficult upbringings. But when you have to admit that you no longer have a home and that you're going to be asking for help, that is an incredibly jarring experience. So we try our best. We try our best to recognize that, realize that folks are struggling with their, it could be depressing. It also riddles you with anxiety as to, well, do I need to move to another state? Do I need to start my life over? Or can I hunker down, work with the individuals at Chapman Partnership, identify some affordable housing, and get life back on track?
Yeah, you say affordable housing, but where?
Exactly.
I mean, like there were areas like, let's say Liberty City that used to be really cheap. And then you drive through there now and these houses are being knocked down and these like McMansions are being built. Right. It's like, that's not affordable. And then the people who are being displaced out of, and that can be an avatar. Where are they going?
Exactly.
I don't know where they're going. Now, you mentioned that people can be at the Chapman Partnership for 120 days. That's not a long time.
That's not a long time.
Yeah. 4 months. That's not a long time. So ideally, when somebody leaves Chapman Partnership 4 months later, you've job trained them to get a better paying job.
And house them.
Yeah, I think that you guys have you're climbing this mountain, just getting steeper and steeper.
It does. It does. That's why the work we're doing with our network of local landlords. So Chapman doesn't own any properties where we move people into.
Of course, yeah, of course.
We're looking at, developing a series of transitional housing spaces because a lot of the upskilling programs do take, a year and a half to become an apprentice. Let's say you want to become
an electrician,
a plumber, a diesel heavy machinery mechanic. That takes about a year. So for those individuals that want to do that, we want to start putting them in our own transitional housing and afford them the opportunity to really get that certificate. Because as you know, a very skilled trade worker like an electrician, HVAC, there's possibility of earning six figures.
Six figures, yes.
And it's a two-pronged issue that we have in Miami-Dade County. The naturally occurring affordable housing that you're talking about, your Liberty Cities, your Little Havana, your Hialeahs, that's being taken up by full price, all cash buyers, which is progress, right? We have significant wealth coming into Miami. But you also have a workforce that was undertrained in a lot of occasions. We were talking about the podcast. A lot of people back in the day, you could be a cashier or work the bakery at a Publix or a Winn-Dixie and eventually be able to buy a condo or a small home. That just doesn't exist anymore. So we have to work on the affordable housing. We have to work with all the resources we have to provide folks a little bit of a help in getting them at least their down payment, their deposits. But we also need to make sure that people are making more money. Because at minimum wage, the math is never going to work out at $15 an hour, no matter who you are. A lot of people rely on family. A lot of people are couch surfing, but that's not sustainable. Sustainable is earning enough to be able to afford something.
Now, there are some people, Alex, that just are not going to fit into that mold. Do you relocate people?
We do. So one of the first questions that our case managers ask, because there's an incredible population that is from out of state in Miami-Dade County, is do you have family or friends or a network of support elsewhere? And a significant amount of clients, we do get them reconnected with family. That is a positive outcome for us to getting people reconnected with their social networks. A big cause of homelessness is a lot of times that family net that a lot of us can sometimes fall back on. So let's say I lose my job, things get incredibly tough. I know I can reach out to my family and help will be there. We've got that fallback. When people lose that or they start drifting away or they move to a completely different part of the country, that's where homelessness a lot of times occurs. So if our clients do say, I have an uncle that I'm really close to, I just can't afford to get back to Ohio, we will do that for them.
Yeah, and I think that that old Miami dream, like I'm going to go to Miami and
be an influencer and I'm going to open a hotel. And
now it's like, I'm going to get out of Miami.
Yeah.
It's just getting so expensive and we don't have any more land.
And the amount of stories, it's almost like old Hollywood, right? I'm going to go out there and make it big. Things break down sometimes.
They sure do.
And economies shift and housing is expensive and food is expensive. So there's that moment of truth in a lot of young people's lives where they came down here and they've run out of resources. And we are there to kind of hold them and guide them back to where they need to be.
Before I forget, earlier you said you're not a mission. What does that mean?
So traditionally, if you think about a soup kitchen or a mission model, that's just getting people on a walk-in basis,
Fed for the day,
getting them fed for the day and getting them a place to sleep, and then they're on their way. Almost like the old country inns.
Yeah.
Chapman Partnership is a program. It's a network of providers that are laser focused. And yes, we will provide the basic needs and the basic necessities, but we got to get you on a success pathway. We got to get you on a career plan. If you're eligible for benefits, we've got to make sure that you're receiving what you're entitled to. So it's a place of resetting almost and getting you back on your way.
You know, I was at a Goodwill a couple of weeks ago, and they do their own job training on site. Do you do job training on site?
We do. We collaborate with Goodwill as well.
Great.
They have a fantastic program.
They sure do.
But we have Miami-Dade County Public Schools providing job training on site.
For adults or for the kids?
For adults, for both.
Really?
We work with Project Upstart for the kids, and we work with the technical colleges. We just finished a security training program at Chapman Partnership downtown, which you toured, and we graduated 16 individuals. Granted, this is not the last education that they'll attain, but it's a first step. It's a building block. So now you're taking folks that were only eligible for minimum wage jobs, $14, $15 an hour, and now they're in that $21, $22 an hour range. It's not the ultimate solution, but it's getting folks back into the mindset of education. We couldn't do any of that without Miami-Dade College and the school system, so we're really grateful for that.
What is Project Upstart?
Project Upstart is a division of Miami-Dade County Public Schools that focuses on the homeless children that are in their schools. So part of that is they come on site, they provide tutoring services for the kids in our family resource centers through certified teachers. They provide transportation resources. They provide uniform resources. As a father, you know, having kids is an expensive proposition.
Yeah, it's plus.
And it's plus. And the school supplies and the field trips and all these things that are added on when folks are just struggling to make sure that they have rent for the month. So Project Upstart does a great job. And we combine those efforts with our own. And we have staff and we have teachers at Chapman Partnership that make sure that the kids are constantly in an academic enriching environment. That's
awesome. Now you talked about getting people from $14, $15 to $21, $22, but even that doesn't seem like enough.
It doesn't, it's not, but you have to start somewhere.
Yes. Okay.
You absolutely have to start somewhere. Chapman Partnership and the homelessness continuum of care in Miami will never say what's the use or will never give up. So it's building blocks, it's baby steps. You have to realize a lot of our clients perhaps didn't finish high school or perhaps don't speak the language. So whether they're going to be successful in Miami-Dade County, in Orlando, in Atlanta, in Chicago, or in Los Angeles, you got to get educated. You got to get some sort of training. And maybe your future is not in Miami, but that certificate is an industry recognized credential, and it's just as good anywhere in this country. So you have to start somewhere.
And there are employers that will ask you for your high school diploma, right?
Absolutely. It's a disqualifier for a lot of our clients. So that's another thing.
A disqualifier.
Yeah. If a job is asking for a high school diploma and you don't have one, well, you're dead in the water. So we immediately identify those folks. We get them on track for a GED certificate so that they have that under their belt. And like I said, whether your future's in Miami or in another part of the country, these are things that you absolutely need. There's no workaround.
Yeah, and it's sad to think about it because, our parents are immigrants.
Right.
So they moved here from someplace else. But sometimes you might be in Miami, you got to go someplace else.
Absolutely. Life is about adapting. Life is about taking the situations that you're given and making the most of them. We house a lot of people. It's over 1,500 individuals every year. Last year, we found stable employment for 571 individuals. Those folks are able to make it work within Miami-Dade County. They get 2 incomes if they're a family. Great. We provide rental assistance just for a while until they could get a little bit of savings under their belt. So Miami is not so far gone that folks can't live here at all, but we're really working to make sure that that entry-level worker, that working class individual can stay. Because if you look at it from a business perspective, Hotels need workers. Restaurants need workers.
Bars, nightclubs.
Bars need workers. We're still a hospitality-based industry, economy, really, in South Florida. We've gotten a lot of finance and we've gotten a lot of tech, but hotels are the name of the game down here. And if your workforce suddenly moves to Jacksonville, well, then what are we going to do? So we've got to ensure that the individuals that are entry level or experiencing homelessness do have an opportunity to remain in Miami. If we don't focus on that, you're going to have a significant issue of no one to work these jobs.
Yeah, it's definitely catch-22 because things just get more and more expensive.
Right.
Wealthy and wealthy people are moving into Miami, but the service staff's always going to be there.
Exactly.
And as the wealthier classes move in, they want more service. So, but where's that class of people going to live?
And do you turn into a city, like there's cities across the country where the center of business is so expensive that you have to bus in workers from 2 hours away. And that's not sustainable for a business to pay all those transportation and lodging costs. So you need to make sure that you maintain a local workforce.
Yeah. And it's also not a good way to live.
It's not at all.
Commuting 2 hours to and from, that's 4 hours a day. That's not a good way to live.
It's time away from your family.
Yeah. Or educating yourself.
Or yourself.
Or
mental health.
If
your life just becomes one big hamster wheel, there's no time for meditation and self-reflection and self-enrichment and learning. It's not conducive to good things.
No, it's not. Now, you keep saying Chapman Partnership. Tell me about the partnership part.
So originally, when Mr. Chapman opened our centers, we were a community partnership for homelessness. At the time of his passing, our board and everyone involved at the organization wanted to name it after the founder. He was very low-key, so he didn't want his name on anything while he was with us. But we dedicated it to him because the work is so important. And we also, it's very cool because partnership's in our name. So we cannot do, I just mentioned 571 individuals employed, around 2,000 placed in stable housing. We couldn't do any of that without the business community coming to us and providing our clients opportunities for work. We have great partnerships with JP Morgan Chase, with Publix, who we mentioned, with our local hotels that will come to us and say, we're in need of X position. We will help get those individuals trained and give them an opportunity in our work setting. We could not do the work we do without the education partners that I mentioned, without our collaborations with the Early Learning Coalition, and most importantly, our network of landlords. These are all private landlords. These are folks that might have 3-4 unit buildings that say, you know what, I'm going to work with Chapman on renting out 2 of my units to this population and ensuring that folks have an opportunity.
You know, you mentioned the landlords, and so these landlords, thinking just like business-wise, do you offer them anything extra, like stable rents, like we'll always rent this out year-round? How does that work, Alex?
So looking at the proposition from the business side, let's say you're a landlord. If you collaborate with Chapman, you're never going to have a shortage of tenants.
No vacancies.
Your vacancy rate will go down significantly because as folks move on from units, unfortunately, we always have clients, right? The situation is not going to go away anytime soon. So we have a steady stream of tenants. We have, guaranteed first last deposit provided by Chapman. So for the landlords, it's a desirable proposition, which is why we are able to rely on them. If being in the space, rentals have an up and down. Lately, it's been up, up, up. But in a traditional economy, sometimes, it gets slow. But by working with Chapman Partnership, people ensure that they have also individuals, what we call housing navigators, that identify the right client for the right unit. So most of that legwork is done by Chapman, and the landlord just has to provide the actual space.
Yeah, what hurts rentals in Miami is vacancies. So going back to the business side, because I've had people approach me about housing for disabled adults.
Right.
Now, do you need more landlords, or are you guys
We
good?
always need more
Really?
landlords. We have an incredible network, but we could always use more just because the situation at hand, right? We need more folks that are willing to work with affordable housing programs or engage with Chapman. and sometimes give our folks an opportunity. But there is always a need. We need more employers.
How do they find you? How do they find you?
ChapmanPartnership.org is the easiest way to get to us. On our
landlord.
website, on our website, we have a page dedicated to landlords that want to partner with us.
Awesome.
It'll connect you immediately to our housing division. Maritza Luna is our director of housing.
That's great.
And it's an incredible network. It's an incredible experience. A lot of our landlords actually come to our centers and are part of our education programming and networking, because it's its own network, the Chapman landlords. It's incredible.
Yeah, I'm going to reach out to Maritza. That's amazing.
For sure.
Now, earlier you mentioned that you have employed 571 individuals. This is per year total?
Per year.
Per year.
So we're averaging north of 500 individuals every year, and we're constantly trying to do more. So I mentioned we always need landlords, new landlords. We always need new employers to come and understand the work that we do, to come and understand the soft skill training that we're providing on site, the certification training that we're providing on site. And we've had companies come to us and say, you know what, we need a specific type of training with the client before they even start working with us. We can do that at Chapman. So on that same website is an employment page where interested employers can reach out to us, and I'll speak to them directly.
You know, I went to Goodwill, and they're the biggest employer of disabled people in South Florida, but they employ their own people.
Exactly.
You're getting people employed.
Exactly. Now, what we've launched recently, because there is a segment of our population that has either significant gaps in their work history or perhaps a couple of blemishes on their criminal records, and they're having a really tough time gaining employment. They're our doing all that we ask of them in those case management plans, but they just can't seem to land that job. We established an element of our organization called CP Works. CP Works, we've recently partnered with the Underline, the park under the Metro Rail, and we are hiring our own people on a transitional basis. So they get a job at the Underline for a year. We're also collaborating with local cities, local municipalities on doing this landscape beautification work. We get something on their work history. In that year that they're with us, part of the deal is you gotta engage in one of our upskilling programs. So by the end of that year of working on the Underline, they now have a year of work experience in something that they might not have ever done before. So landscape, beautification, maintenance. You'll have a certification, and you'll work with our employment specialist on getting that next job. But it's always easier to get a job when you have a job, as opposed to I haven't had a job for a couple of years. It becomes very difficult. So we're very proud of our CP Works division.
Yeah, another population that has a hard time getting work is disabled adults.
Yes.
And there's just like, not so much a stigma, but employers are just afraid of liability and all this. So you have somebody at Chapman Partnership who's one of your clients.
Right.
And they've got a small time petty felony.
Right.
Maybe some gaps in their employment. How do you tell those employers, or what kind of guarantees you have that, hey, things will be okay?
The biggest solution to that is transparency and communication. There are jobs where there's a lot of area for individuals to be able to participate. So I've had employers come to me and tell me, well, it just can't be a misdemeanor regarding a financial crime because we're a financial institution, or it can't be involved with drugs because we're a pharmacy. So there is always room for communication, and there's always an opportunity with the right employer and the right client. It comes down to every person has a story, every person is unique, and that one-on-one care that we provide and that one-on-one connection that we provide with employers, the solution lies in there.
That's awesome. Now, another thing that I saw on your website is that you offer healthcare, dental care, and I was surprised, not surprised, that dental care is a big deal.
It's
and
huge.
I say this because I was a merchant marine for 20 years, and you get like a broad spectrum of guys that are working on these ships. And some of them would just have terrible dental health to the point where you couldn't even look at them. So that's going to make you hard to get employed. So you have people coming to you that have got dental issues. Like, what are you doing for them?
Dental issues, as you mentioned, are huge. Number one, for your body's health. Bacterial infections and that can spread to other elements of your health. So folks that think that dental is a purely cosmetic issue, that's just not true. On the other side of that, we've done trainings, right? Customer service trainings. And these are kind of pre-written curriculums. And the slides will come up of always smile. Good customer service involves a smile. Well, let's say you might be missing a tooth or have had poor dental hygiene in the past. This immediately makes the individual feel some type of way. It feels it's a re-traumatization, like we were mentioning. So we have a network of dental providers. Miami-Dade College also has a great dental program where we refer individuals, and it's all about those warm handoffs. You have to make sure that people know that these services are available, which our case managers do a great job of, and it's why we meet every single individual once a week and getting them to there. Sometimes it's getting folks across the finish line. Sometimes it's not just giving them a business card and saying, go here. Mm-hmm. It's actually calling that dental provider and making sure that folks are taking us up on what they need. And ultimately, getting that back up to good shape, folks, it's about self-confidence, right?
Yes.
You go to a job interview. You want to look your best. You want to feel your best. You want to be in a good place mentally. So the other side of that is we provide clothing for the interviews. We provide a suit if needed. We provide ties for the ladies. We provide dresses. We even provide barber services and beauty services because it's so important that people are in a good place. We mentioned the trauma of being homeless. You don't want to be beaten down and going to a job interview because employers sense that energy. So we want to make sure people are looking good, feeling good, and ultimately getting their lives back in order.
Now, you have regular employers you work with, right?
Yes.
So they know that these are your clients.
They absolutely do.
And even so, there's no stigma. They'll...
There's no stigma because think about it. Let's say you run a construction company. Do you check in on where every single one of your carpenters and electricians are sleeping every night? A lot of folks don't self-reveal that they're homeless. They just show up to work at 9 a.m. and they go home at 5 and that's it. So it's really no different than employing anyone else.
Yeah, I've seen people like in Walmart parking lots.
Yes.
Where that they're living in their car, but they present well.
Exactly.
So like you're saying, you might have employees at your job site.
And you don't even know.
And they're not going to tell you.
There's an element of shame. And for those folks, it's always going to be, I got a plan. I'm going to figure it out. This is temporary. But to those people, I always say, if you reach out for help sooner, that plan can work itself out much quicker. So that maybe it would take 6 months of living in your car to be able to save up your last security down payment. With us, you can do it in a month or two of staying in our shelters, saving up all your money because we do not charge our clients a penny for anything. Food, board, services, it's all completely free. So it can get folks back on their feet that much quicker.
Yeah, because you could potentially be employed for 4 months with zero expenses.
Save up all your money.
So at $2,000 a month might be $8,000 when you're done, and now you have something to work with.
Now you have something to work with. And if you qualify, we get you connected to rental assistance or all these different programs that do exist. So we talk a lot about the challenges that exist, but there's also a lot of opportunities and resources. So it's important to get the right person connected to the right program and getting them on a plan.
Yeah. Now, earlier we talked about, the hypothetical guy who his rent just went up and If, let's say overnight you find yourself in that position, if you were consulting with that person, guiding them, mentoring them, what would be your words of wisdom to that person?
Ask for help.
That's so hard, man.
Let the pride go.
Yeah, that's the
ask for help. I think it's not specific to homelessness. You have folks that are dealing with, and we all have them in our families, right? Folks that are dealing with substance abuse, or folks that are dealing with anxiety, depression, mental health. The first step is always ask for help. Reach out for some fellowship. You toured Chapman. There's a huge sense of community within our walls. Sometimes people are able to get housing and they're like, well, I kind of like it here. I want to get my own place, but I've come to really enjoy.
It is a nice place.
The people that I get
enclosed and
the
safe.
People that I have dinner with, the conversations that are had. And that's a big element of getting people to a better place mentally so that when they do back into their own housing, they were maybe at a 2 emotionally and now they're back to an 8, 9, or a 10.
Yeah.
But the biggest thing is ask for the help that's out there.
I'm not going to say his name, but there's this billionaire influencer, young guy in the 30s, self-made billionaire. And he even says it, I don't do anything alone.
No.
It's all a team. And this is a guy, he's in his 30s and he's a self-made billionaire. And he says, I don't do anything alone. It's all a team.
You'll find that the best leaders and the best businessmen or leaders of industry will always tell you, I succeed when I give away my power, when I'm not holding it so tight that it suffocates. The more you include others in your vision, and Alva Chapman is a classic example. Chapman Partnership is a classic example. It took dozens and dozens and dozens of local business leaders, elected officials, corporations providing funding to make his vision work. And because he was so inclusive, and he even put partnership in the name because it wasn't going to be just him going about it, we have the outcomes that we have today. And we're not Los Angeles, and we're not a place that's completely hopeless. We can provide people services and we can provide people help because it is truly a village.
Yeah, and that word partnership sets an expectation.
That's from the gate.
Yeah.
From the gate. This will not be a sole venture. Doing the work I do, if we sat there and said, we're going to teach everything and we're going to do everything ourselves and we're going to hire everyone ourselves, well, that takes the amount of people that you can help from the thousands that we help to a very minuscule portion. So the more we expand our tent, the more people we bring in. That's why we always invite people to tour. We say, get proximate to the issue. When you see someone sleeping on a park bench, don't just stigmatize them as the other. Try to learn about what's going on with homelessness in Miami-Dade County and come visit one of our centers. See what you can do.
You know, years ago, I read this prayer that I use all the time because it keeps you from judging people. When you see somebody who's in a terrible situation, you think to yourself, instead of judging, you say, there, but for the grace of God, go I. Yeah. Because like you're saying, like, you know, you see a person who's homeless, oh, they're lazy, or they're a drug addict, or you don't know. You don't know. And maybe if you had been in their upbringing, you might be even worse off. They might be better off than you.
And within our shelters right now, in our case reports, we have nurses, we have security officers, we have your cashiers in your supermarket, we have teachers. So it's not always the individual that you think it is. And when you go, you know, pick up your next loaf of bread, the person checking you out might be experiencing homelessness. So before we're so quick to judge, you mentioned that you toured our center. I always ask everyone to count the people that they see in our centers during the day. It's never more than 40 or 50 individuals. If you go at night, there's 500 people there. What are they doing during the day? They're out there working.
Educating themselves.
They're out there going to school.
Yeah.
They're out there getting their paperwork in order. So these are our neighbors. These are our community members. This is our village. So to pass judgment or cast them away, I always ask everyone, if you are forced to skip 3 paychecks, your company says, I'm not going to pay you for the next 3 pay periods. What does your living situation look like?
A lot of people are homeless.
A lot of people are
homeless.
And that ultimately happens to a lot of individuals. The job goes away, expenses exceed income, you're in this situation.
You know, like you said, I toured Chapman Partnership during the day, and you're right, there wasn't a few dozen people. It'd be interesting to see it when it's full of people.
I'd love for you to come back. We do a lot of nighttime events. We've got karaoke. We've got wellness gatherings. We have a lot of volunteers come and do activities. Art on the lawn is great.
Oh, yeah.
Next time we do, and I'll have you come back out.
Please.
It really feels like a village.
Yeah, it's awesome. And another thing, I think that places like, because you're big, places like Chapman Partnership, places like Goodwill, there should be programs with the public schools for field trips. And when I was a kid, field trips were always like the highlight of the day. And I think I really would have enjoyed going to a Goodwill, going to a Chapman Partnership and seeing that. Because when you're a little kid, you might drive through a sketchy neighborhood and you kind of see it and it's scary. But it would be good to like meet these, especially the kids.
So we've got something called the LIVE program.
Okay.
That is a collaboration with a bunch of high school student government groups. And they are placed on kind of a rotation, kind of like a residency or an internship. And they come through our centers and they help us do the work. And they do homework with the kids and they serve meals in our kitchens. We also work with the Miami-Dade College Changemakers. It's one of their internships for the students that are working in social work and government work. And they come through our centers as well and become interns. and they help out our case managers. They help out our child specialists. And all of those volunteers have a common theme. They say that it's a life-changing experience.
Yeah, earlier I told you that a lot of these programs, they're almost like secret societies.
Right.
And how great would it be if one day every kid in Miami is like, oh yeah, I've been there. I know what they do.
Right.
How would that change stuff?
Absolutely. That one of our biggest things, as I've already said in the interview, is get proximate. Reach out to us. Go to the website. There's another page dedicated just to our volunteering services. Set up a school field trip with your high school chess club or debate club and come work with us. Come see what's really going on in Miami-Dade County, because there's a lot of heartbreak, but there's also a lot of really profound success stories that are life-changing.
Yeah, I think that if the kids saw the kids, that would be super life-changing.
Absolutely.
Yeah, because it kind of like blew my mind when I was there that you have these dorms for the families. Because I always just assume, like when I think of a place like Chapman Partnership, adults, but no, you had whole families there.
Oh, north, it's between 40 and 50% of that population, that 800 to 1,000 individuals, are families with their kids. And it's going up. So the image that people have is not the correct one. We also have an incredible portion of our census as well that is working. So around 40% of people staying at Chapman tonight have jobs.
Yeah, they're working homeless.
And go out.
It's a thing.
And it's almost this shadow workforce where no one asks where they live, but they're staying with us. And they're working in our hotels and our restaurants and our bars and at the airport. We've got to make sure that they're okay, because if that workforce disappears, our economy is going to face some struggles.
Yeah, and I saw this guy. He was a homeless advocate out in LA. He'd been homeless himself, so he knew what he was talking about. And he said in LA, it's probably different in Miami, because I think LA, because it's such a big population, that it's worse. But he says that once you've been on the street for 3 months, you're suffering PTSD.
Absolutely.
You've been beaten. You've been robbed. If you're a woman, you may have been raped.
Right.
So it's like once you've been through all of that, then getting off the streets even harder, exponentially harder. So yeah, like you're saying, like these people at the shadow workforce where they're living in their cars, it's only a matter of time before something bad happens to them.
Well, we say that Chapman Partnership and other providers in the continuum, we're the emergency room for poverty. So like you said, poverty, homelessness immediately introduces element of fight or flight. You're constantly just surviving.
Yes.
Where's my meal coming from? Where's my shelter going to be? Am I at risk? So coming to Chapman Partnership is a place, it's almost like stabilizing an ER patient or someone that's experienced a physical trauma. Getting them stable, then immediately converting that mindset to being, things are going to be okay. I don't have to worry about my meals. I don't have to worry about where I'm going to sleep, and getting focused on the next steps.
Yeah. And like the fight or flight, like I imagine if you're living in your car, you're constantly getting shooed away. We don't want you here. We don't, it's like, you're probably just constantly on the move. Absolutely.
And we talk about self-confidence, and we talk about how you see yourself as a human being. If you're constantly being shooed away or being told that you're less than because you lost your housing, that just has a precipitous effect on individuals. And in cities with a large homeless population, you'll also see crime rates going up correspondingly, because they're not mutually exclusive. So if we ignore the problem, if we don't pose solutions, it has adverse effects. And we're great partners with the Greater Miami Chamber of Commerce. And Alfred over there, when he brings new companies into Miami, one of his big selling points is that our street homelessness is so low. Because if let's say you have a chain of coffee shops and you want to open up in a city. If you open up in a city that has a homelessness issue, street homelessness will be at the door of your business, and it will impact your sales. So everyone has a vested interest in this thing.
Yeah. When I see the homeless, it breaks my heart. I remember one time I was in a convenience store and there was a homeless guy in there. And this just like, it shows like, we got to be nicer, and we got to like think of the other. This guy, he says, I just want someone to talk to me. He was just being ignored by everybody. When I heard that, I was like, oh my goodness. Like I felt really bad. Like me personally, like he just wanted somebody to talk to him. So it's a tough situation.
We're seeing more and more that as a society, kindness and empathy
so important
is sometimes lacking.
Yeah.
living in an expensive city, most of us are constantly on the go, go, go. What's next? What's the next deal? What's the next meeting? Who do I need to talk to make sure I can afford my housing and my way of life? That leaves us in a place where there's not a lot of room for sitting down with individuals, for spirituality, for reconnection. And when you lose that, you become very cold, very shifted away from kind of what the priorities should be.
And distracted.
And with good reason, right? Let's say you have a mortgage of $5,000, you got 3
problems.
kids, your wife may or may not be working, you've got a lot of problems on your hands. And we get back to what happens if you don't have a paycheck for a month. So that's constantly on people's minds.
Absolutely. Well, Alex, this has been super enlightening for me from my visit like a month ago or 2 when I went.
We're happy to have you.
Yeah, it was awesome to be there. I got to go back, like the art on the lawn.
Yes. Where
I can just meet more people. Because I don't think I really met any of the residents. It was just too few people there and everybody was out and about, which is good because you want people out working or getting educated. This is just a phenomenal conversation. You guys, we're all doing a great job because to have 3 million people in Miami-Dade County and a homeless population of 1,000, ish, that's pretty good. I don't even know what the math is, but it's like 0.0000 of something. So that's awesome because you see like on TV, other big cities the size of Miami and the homeless population is like in the tens of thousands, which that's a lot.
That is a lot.
75,000 people, because you're going to have people who are homeless or quasi-homeless or uncounted because they're living in their cars. So we're doing a good job.
But we can't ease up on it. We've got to consistently keep working at it. Yeah. And hopefully that number just keeps going down and down. Yeah.
Like we get to 4 million. I don't want to get to 4 million people.
But we do want to get to 0 functionally homeless in this city. And we can do it.
When you say functionally, what does that mean?
Meaning they have a place to sleep at night.
Right. They might be transitioning.
Right. But we just don't want them on the street.
Yeah. And I got to say, the people I've seen who are living on the street, they seem to be people who are drug addicted or some kind of mental health issues.
And they have a separate pathway that we also put them on. But it's a different.
You put them or somebody else puts them?
We refer them to where they need to go.
Where do they go?
Jackson Health has great services. Miami New Hope has great
But where do they sleep?
Rehab. There's treatment centers. There's healthcare institutions.
Okay.
But they have to want to do it is the key.
Yeah. And there's Wynwood, I've seen a homeless population there. There's a house. Is it Camila since who's in Wynwood?
You've got rescue missions in Wynwood. We're also right on the border of Wynwood.
And the rescue mission in Wynwood, people can sleep there?
They do. They do sleep there.
Yeah. So when you see people on the street, like it's I don't want to say by choice, but it is by choice.
It's circumstances.
Yeah. Okay.
But there's a very high likelihood that anybody that you see on the street has been approached by one of the outreach coordinators and offered assistance.
Yeah. Because of mental health or whatever, they're just chosen.
There you go.
Yeah. And what do you do about that? That's a tough one.
And that's where, sometimes if it's criminal acts are done, then law enforcement has to intervene, and there's just a whole different set of actions there.
Right. And it's good that you bring up law enforcement because I think that Sheriff Rosie and other departments are doing a great job.
They really are.
Yeah.
We count on their support. Like I say, the whole county is a village, and we're all just resource officers. We're providing resources. Our local law enforcement officials, they don't want to go out there and arrest people. They would much rather people are referred to where they need to be and where they can get the help. So we all lean on each other, and we all have very active communication. City of Miami Police is great. Miami-Dade County Police is great. City of Miami Beach, we're all just trying to help.
Speaking of the police, I did a police ride-along, which I highly recommend because you're going to just see, like what it's like to be a cop. And the police I met were really good people. They were kind. They were nice to people on the street. Because, on TV, they all look like these hard asses. But no, there's like people like you and me doing a really hard job, super hard job. And I think that Miami is headed in the right direction. We've got an affordability crisis. I don't know how we're going to fix that. But I think that other than that, we're all like rowing in a good direction.
We are focused. We have a network, and we have solid leadership.
Yeah.
And I'm happy with to be doing the work that I'm doing in Miami-Dade County.
Yeah, me, I know I sound like it, but I'm like obnoxiously pro Miami. I love Miami.
I love Miami.
This is
We
a
were
great
talking
town.
about it. This is an amazing place. We have
It
such
is.
a rich culture,
Yeah.
such a rich history, and the best is yet to come.
The best is yet to come. Yeah, and I've been around the country. There's a lot worse.
There really is.
You know, there's better, I guess.
Yeah.
But for a city the size of Miami, we're doing a really good job.
It wouldn't be anywhere else.
No, me either, man. Alex, I've got 5 last questions I want to ask you before we round it out. Let me get to my questions here. All right, first question. What is one belief about poverty or homelessness that you had to unlearn after doing this work?
That people became homeless just because they had poor judgment. A lot of times situations are outside of a person's control, and what they need is an opportunity.
Yeah.
And that given that opportunity, they would always squander it. It's just not true.
Your answer reminds me of that movie, Will Smith, The Pursuit of Happiness.
Incredible movie.
It just happened.
It just happened.
Unfortunate events.
And the sense of desperation that you feel,
Yes,
anxiety as these situations happen. People are living that every day.
Now, maybe you can look at Will Smith in that movie and say, well, I would have made a different decision that would have ended differently, but maybe you wouldn't have.
I mean, think back on your life. I'm sure we all have 2 or 3 that we want back.
Close calls.
Yeah, we'd be like, oh, I would have done something else there. But life
Yeah.
life happens, and you make the best decision you can with the information you have in that moment.
Yeah, great movie. Okay, second question. Every employer in Miami understood one thing about homeless people rebuilding their lives. What would you want them to understand?
That these are incredibly resilient people. These are people that, provided the opportunity, will really appreciate it and show up for you. I mentioned CP Works. Every single person that we've hired is still on the job site at CP Works, shows up on time, takes pride in their work. Because when you've had to get by without for so long, when you're suddenly afforded an opportunity, you're damn grateful to have it.
You know, for some reason, this reminds me of this guy. He's a baker, maybe in California, Dave's Killer Bread.
Yeah.
Ex-con.
I've heard of him.
Yeah, well, ex-con. He and his family opened up this bread making business called Dave's Killer Bread.
Right.
And they would hire ex-cons, ended up selling it for hundreds of millions of dollars. So, maybe we need employers like that.
Absolutely.
Here in Dade County.
And it creates a culture of opportunity and gratitude.
Gratitude.
And those ventures are always incredibly successful.
Yeah, because I'm going to say that probably somebody who's been homeless or either in prison or both, that they're going to be incredibly grateful and hardworking and honest and do whatever it takes to keep that job if you just give them a chance.
Well, there's a sense of hopelessness. Let's say you exit
Right.
prison, you're like, no one will ever hire me. I don't even know what to do. To suddenly you have a job at a bakery, you're going to make some good bread.
And some good decisions,
And some
hopefully.
good decisions.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
Okay. Next question. What quality do you see in residents, your residents, that most people would never expect?
Kindness. We get back to kindness and empathy. Our clients look out for each other. Our clients learn to, it's almost like extended families in there. They eat dinner together. The kids go on the field trips together. They go to career fairs together. They share the same case managers. They worship together. It's that sense of community.
That word kindness, I have met people who have had bad things happen to them. And, and when that happens, you can go in one of 2 directions. Like, happened to me, I can do it to you too.
Right.
Or it happened to me, I know how terrible that was.
I'm not going to do it to you.
Because I know how terrible it is.
Mm-hmm.
It's like to go the route, like, I'm going to treat you bad because I was treated badly. Like, how psycho is that?
Right.
We should all be thinking like just kindness. And I think also like if you've been homeless or in prison, you know how bad things can get.
Yes.
And you just know that just kindness, man.
There is.
It goes a long way.
It really does. And I sometimes I think that I'm sounding too sappy when we have our employee meetings and all that, and we really hearken on empathy and kindness, but it gets us so much further than we would be otherwise. When you approach things from that lens of just offering support and help.
One time I was in a convenience store and I was approached. This is not to toot my own horn because I'm not the only one. I hope not. But this homeless lady, she's like, will you buy some meat? I said, ma'am, buy whatever you want.
Mm-hmm.
And she'd be like, whatever you want. And a friend of mine, he's with me. I was like in my 20s. He's like, what are you doing, dude? I was like, dude, she's hungry. And he was almost like angry at me.
Right.
Like, she's hungry. How am I going to tell her no? And just kindness goes a long way, man. Yeah.
Usually the more acts of service that you do, or there's the old saying, the more you give, the more you get. And I'm a firm believer in that.
Yeah. And and the giving part, you got to give without the expectation of getting back.
Right.
Because if you give because somehow the universe or people or whatever, they just know this person's self-serving and this person's just serving.
Mm-hmm.
You got to do your acts of kindness without thinking it's going to come back, but it all comes back.
It always does.
It
always does. That's when I get back to our volunteering initiatives. Our volunteers are always so happy when their project comes to an end, and they immediately say, "When can I come back?" So we have folks that are on a rotation, and every month, every 2 months, they're back at the shelters, at the centers,
That's awesome.
helping others.
Because there's always a need.
There's always a need.
Yeah. Okay. Next question. When you think about people who succeed long-term after Chapman Partnership, what do they seem to have in common?
A positive mindset.
It's all mindset.
It's all mindset. Of this happened to me, I'm going to do everything in my power to not have it happen to me again. We talked about decisions. If I made the poor decision, I recognize that it was a poor decision, and I'm going to do my best to not do it again. It's all about mindset and opportunities and education and employment and housing. But if your mindset is not in the right place, opportunities can be squandered, jobs can be lost, and housing can be lost. And you would find yourself back in the same situation. So our successful clients have that can-do, positive, I'm going to get it done mindset.
I like that you used the word opportunity, because your clients, they can have the best mindset in the world, but if we don't help them with opportunities,
where do you start?
Where do you start?
Where do you start?
Yeah.
And if you're born, we always use the analogy, me and you, we were fortunate to be born to families that had stable housing. We had family networks, but let's say you're born and you don't have that. You're 20 yards behind already. So you've got to work your butt off just to get back to even and then start progressing. So these are all elements that go into the situation.
Yeah, sure is. Okay. Last question, Alex. 10 years from now, what would real progress on homelessness in Miami actually look like to you?
It would look like folks in their own stable, affordable housing, but doing work that they weren't doing before. So moving on from that entry-level position. We were talking about when we were kids, entry-level was more for high school, college students, and it was just something to get by. We've transitioned to entry-level work is a career for a lot of people, and there's no hope of advancement or moving on up or being able to afford your own apartment or your own small house. Progress to me would be having a more educated workforce that combines with more affordable housing, and us always being there to be that backstop and support for the people that don't have it. Ultimate success would be not seeing a single person on those sidewalks.
That would be the dreamland.
That is always the goal, and we're always working towards it. Some people say it can't be done. We believe it can.
That's great.
We really do.
Alex, this has been a great conversation. I'm so happy you came on. It was nice meeting you a couple months ago, I think, when I went to Chapman Partnership, opened up my eyes. I saw things good things that I just never would have imagined.
And it was great having you, and we welcome you back. Thanks for having me on the show.
You're so welcome. Let's turn to the camera and we'll sign off. So this has been the Autism Podcast with Alexander Paz of the Chapman Partnership. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you again next time.